Hey, what's going on, everybody? On today's show, who really runs and rules the AI-generated images? We've seen a lot this week from GPT 4.0 and their replacement for DALL-E. Obviously, Gemini has been making a strong push of what they've been doing with their experimental and Flash 2.0, and also Grok is in the mix of what they're able to do with images. So AI image generation isn't just about like what can be created, it's about how well, with GPT 4.0, sort of dazzling with photorealism and Grok 3 thriving with unfiltered creativity, which could be a big part of it. Gemini Flash 2.0 has a lot of like precision, precise editing that's super, super cool. So that's what we're talking about on today's show. We're going to dive into each of these three tools. There's more out there, but we're talking about the big players today and what they seem to be really good at, where they maybe missed, where you might want to use a scalpel instead of, I don't know, another surgery tool. So that's what we're talking about on the show today. It's Friday. Aloha. Welcome, everybody. Jimmy's got his shirt on. We have Jimmy, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. Almost said me first. This is the Daily AI Show. You could tell I'm back from a trip because my brain is frazzled. Today is March 28th, 2025, and I'm excited to be back. Thank you guys for holding down the fort. I'm sure the shows were amazing Tuesday through Thursday, but I have not seen any of them yet. So you guys kind of take it from here. I know you said, Beth, you guys have been talking about this show. So let's kick things off. Obviously we can go in and show lots of examples, but maybe Beth, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you're sort of our de facto expert as far as the Daily AI Show team is concerned. You've been doing more impressive stuff from what I remember in Midjourney earlier than I saw anybody else. I think about the interesting images of the art of the furniture that you had done, and so you have a super creative mind. Not to take away from anybody else, but what's your initial take here on these tools and really what ChatGPT brought out this week to throw into the mix?
So when we first set the show up, it was going to be an AI editing comparison between what Gemini's experimental model could do and Grok. And then OpenAI dropped 4.0 native image generation. And it really started to mix things up in a really interesting way, because between Grok and Gemini, there were very distinct delineation, right? Grok is going to give you some more interesting creativity, and Gemini is going to try to be like surgically precise. And I think when OpenAI comes into the mix, the quality of what OpenAI was giving blew those two out of the water. Now, like with Gemini, you can get like a more crisp image than you could, right? Like you can defuzz things. You can make things more clear. Grok is very fast. Now, Grok may be very fast because they have a ton of compute and not the range of users that that OpenAI does, at least. But those are the things that I think are fun. And the other thing, I'm curious what Junmi thinks about this, and it would be interesting to hear Carl when he comes, if he comes. We are back in a situation, I don't know that we ever left it, but we're back in a situation where the more you know about the real terms of setting up an image or discerning like what you want edited, the better your outcome will be. And so most of what I'm seeing as people are talking about this on X is suggestions on how you get this particular effect, how you get that particular effect. And often what I'm doing, right? Like I I have this big light fixture sculpture behind me in this environment, and I was asking it Gemini actually to remove it, and that was very interesting because it removed my hat, it removed my head. I'm not sure we should show that photo because it's kind of disturbing, but
Well, I was about to ask. It sounds like it did other stuff, but I was like, oh, if you remove that pendant light, what did it decide was the image on the wall behind it? But it looks like maybe it didn't get that far. But that was going to be my follow-up question: is like, what did it decide the greenish, aqua-ish picture was before? Like it has to create that from somewhere.
It did a little of that, and Junmi and I were talking. Maybe Junmi, you can speak to this because you were suggesting that maybe Gemini didn't understand what was the subject of the photo.
Right. I think we were talking about some in painting options, and it was looking at the entire photo as a single subject, or was identifying a different subject in the image. And so, having in painting tools, the main reason you are able to highlight is to tell the model, "This is what I'm talking about. Edit this thing." Whereas if you're just using text, that might become a little more, a little more difficult. How do you how do you tell it like, okay, like I believe the example Beth you gave was your that lantern in the back of your image, like round image hanging off of ceiling.
Right.
It's
No,
right?
remove that
That does
light
not look like a
fixture.
traditional lamp. There's no, like,
Yeah.
real, like, touch points. It's like the thing that looks like a wadded ball of paper on a string, those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then the or infinity thing, does it keep going? Yeah, I get that.
please remove the light fixture. And while I appreciate that I am light to Gemini, it was not what I was thinking would be removed from the photo.
I want to ask you guys, because I don't know the answer to this. I think I know part of the answer, but maybe Andy, you could jump in, or somebody else. Okay. What struck me from what came out from 4.0, before we get into some examples, was when I read about that, and I was traveling in Austin most of this week, so I had a lot of other things going on as this was sort of coming to light. Um, that is not a diffusion model. The way I understood it is top down, left to right, and it's for lack of a better term here, it's using multimodal capabilities to create this image, and that perhaps it is just different holistically from diffusion. Now, the question I have is, number one, did I say that correctly, as you guys know it? And number two, Gemini and Grok. I haven't used Grok, so I can't speak to it. Are those diffusion models, or I know Gemini has been multimodal for a long time, or are they using something similar to what we're seeing with 4.0? In other words, was 4.0 first with this? Have we seen this before? Is this novel and new? Or like, no, Brian, this is just still multimodal and it's just their flavor of it. Who knows the answer to that?
As
I
I
don't
understand it. Oh, go ahead, Andy. Yeah.
I don't know the answer, so go ahead, Junmi.
Oh, okay. So the way I understand it is the 4.0 image generation process is different than diffusion. It's a different. I can't give you any technical details right now. I have to read deeper into it, but it
Yeah.
is different than the diffusion methodology, and everybody else is still using a diffusion methodology.
Okay.
Some of the things that have come up is whether um, I believe the head of Midjourney was asked, "Oh, because of this new method, is Midjourney going to like move towards that or integrate that or use that in any way? Do you think diffusion is? Are you going to move away from diffusion?" And of course, in classic Midjourney, punk rock fashion, he just said, "Nah." So I, thi- I don't think this is like the end of the diffusion development. I think it's just like everything else we've seen, especially over the last year when it comes to model development, is that there is different aspects that different models and different companies and institutions are focusing on to get better results, whether that be on the algorithm side, whether that be on the scaling of the compute side, whether that be the hardware side, those kinds of things. And collectively, these are all just going to be different knobs and levers that different groups are going to focus on to just get more efficiency out of it and better results and things like that.
So, right. And just to clarify, the diffusion method is, if I remember the phrase correctly, a GAN approach. So it's an adversarial um, approach to creating an image so that there are two AI eyes, for lack of a better concept. So the idea is, give me a Van Gogh tree. They start with snow. Is it a tree yet? No. Is it a tree yet? No. Is it a tree yet? So that's how that process becomes an image. It seems like what OpenAI is doing is a little more, if this is true, what else is true, right? So it's starting at the top of an image and painting that, and then coming down and painting that. And one of the things that Nate pointed out was that it's doing much better on text within the image because of that process, right? So if that's starting an N, it continues printing the N as it moves through.
I think what you just said is like in line with what I literally just asked GPT to explain this, right? Chat I mean, because I was like, hey, you know, when in Rome. So it says the old way. So diffusion, which I think you guys just basically said, using some sort of called diffusion. Imagine starting with a random blob or TV static, which is what I always think of, and slowly cleaning it up step by step until it looks like a cat or a landscape or whatever you ask for. Okay, then it says GPT-4o skips that whole diffusion process. Instead, it directly predicts pixels using a method inspired by how it already handles text, audio, and vision. And this is called direct pixel generation, no diffusion. So it says, here's a simple breakdown, unified model. GPT-4o is a multimodal transformer, meaning it can handle different types of input like words, sounds, or pixels using one brain instead of separate models glued together, which is what you just kind of talked about with adversarial AI. Image tokens instead of noise. Instead of generating an image by starting with random noise, GPT-4o learns to build an image from scratch, kind of like a painter putting down brushstrokes. It works with something called visual tokens, which are like little building blocks of image data. It says it has end-to-end learning. It learns how to go from a prompt, a dog in space, directly to those visual tokens in one pass or fewer steps, not hundreds like diffusion needs. This makes it faster and easier to align with text, which is funny because it's actually slower right now. But that's we can talk about that. No back and forth cleanup. There's no noise, no noisy image that has to be cleaned up over and over. GPT-4o just decides what the image should be and outputs it. I think that's really, really helpful, actually.
Yeah,
What's interesting about that is that when you look at it generating the image, there is a blurry ghost image behind it, right? So maybe 2-stage drip pixel. I'm not sure, but because
I agree with you.
you could be like, oh, it looks pretty much like the diffusion things. If you're not really paying attention, it's blurry there, and then it's going to get clear. Really interesting. And
let me add just a little insight into one of the major advances that's a result of the approach that GPT-4o has taken, and that is the integration of text directly into that pixel generated image. And one of the things that you alluded to, Brian, was this idea that the way it does this is it does the pixel rows one at a time. And it's basically painting like a raster image in ancient television. It's painting that image one row at a time. And in each of those rows, it's maintaining integrity of whatever is text in the requested prompt and presenting that. And the pictures that you'll see in the demo are of a person standing up against a transparent whiteboard. You can see through into the background of the whiteboard, like you see through it. And there's incredible text on that that's actually good. You remember when we used to try to generate images and it would come up with nonsensical strings of letters? None of that. This is real quality, generated text behind there on the topic of the subject that the prompt was about. And yeah, bring some of these examples up.
Yeah, I did this one yesterday, and this is exactly your point. So I gave it a picture of a Celsius drink, kind of like this one, trying to hold things together in Austin, drinking lots of caffeine. And I gave it an image of my Celsius drink sitting on the nightstand next to my hotel bed, just removed the background, gave it, and I was like, create me a poster that helps sell Celsius. Now, I think we would agree this can's a little too tall. It's like a tall boy Celsius, right? It's not the same. But to be fair, the angle at which I took the picture of the can was not straight on. And I think the proportions were a little warped in my image. So I'm going to call that a me problem, not a 4o problem. But really impressive when you go into this can and see how it was able to basically label it. I think it got the ounces on there. Me and my coworker were looking at this. Now, it gave me some other versions. There you go. There's the can. See how I had the wrong perspective on it, I think. on there. This was the first one it did, which was a little interesting because it kind of gave me a Celsius can on a Celsius can on there. This was a different one I did, which totally didn't really come out right. This was a picture I took from the image from, this is the Gulf Coast, um, uh, the Gulf Coast of where I live in Tampa. And I took that from the plane window and I was like, oh, make me an image. And honestly, it just gave me all of Florida. I think I probably messed up in the prompt there. But I think this is a good example of what people are, for lack of a better term, freaking out about, which is like, wait, hold on a second, pause. And I have a couple other examples too. It's creating ad copy. And I've seen these come up on like, LinkedIn where people have done it for like Avena or hymns. I saw one for hymns and I saw one for candles, and like, it's insane. And we can all agree and go like, that can's not perfect. Okay, 3 more minutes in Canva and I would have that can perfect in there. Or I would just I would do the
let
paint.
me point out something that's not perfect about that can. And you, as a former owner of a CrossFit gym, should know this.
It's the wrong brand.
No, Celsius uses sucralose, which is not good for you. You should be switching to Fit Aid Energy,
1,000%.
dude. Yeah, you should not be drinking Celsius. It's on the prohibited list at Sprouts because of sucralose. Anyway,
If the CVS had served, had Fit Aid, I 1,000% would have picked Fit Aid for that. So I agree with you, Andy.
another product placement there.
Yeah, I should have. It should. If I had Fit Aid, I would have done it for sure because I definitely prefer that product on there. I just think, look, there's a lot more we can talk about 4.0, and I want to talk about the other tools too. By the way, Carl, you need to switch your name because you're on here as Beth, but Carl's here as well. Carl's like, yep. This is the stuff I saw people like this whole week, and they were like, hold on, I can do this. And it seemed like the next LinkedIn post, or Carl, you would share one. Oh, and then somebody else would share one in the Slack, and then somebody else, I would see one from Ethan Malik, and people just seem to be with 4.0 like, oh, it can also do this. I just got off the call with a client. I was working with LinkedIn strategy with that client as well as AI in a 2-step process. Is the CEO, and I was like, by the way, look at this. What do you think about this for doing carousel posts on LinkedIn? And what I had to do was create. I can't share it because it give away to the client, but I had it created as one simple image, which like with cartoon strip delineations on it. And I said, hey, client, what we would do in this case is, one, we would clean it up. I did this really, really quickly, but it was a cartoonish image of him. And it gave me 6 windows. And I said, we would just quickly chop this up and make them individual images and put this out as a carousel post on LinkedIn. And my exact words to him were, you would be one of the only people putting this out, and we can do it in minutes, not days. We don't need a design team. We don't need, there's a intern who's working with this company. And I said, I can work with your intern and we can produce as many of these as we want to, as consistently with these characters as we want to. Not to take anything from Gemini or Grok. I was like, that's a game changer. And he was like, this is amazing, man. Send this over to me. I want to show it to my team, because he was kind of laughing at it. And he's like, I think we would do this or that or the other. I just did it as an example. But I was like, this could be a carousel post at 4 p.m. today. And then Caesar, who we know on LinkedIn, had a image that made me laugh. I should find it. And he's like, he's got a picture of it's like the Mona Lisa. It's a cartoon. He's like, my AI created this. And it's like, I don't want to pick on Gen Y or Alpha or whatever, but they go, okay. And they're just dead tone face. And then it's just a zoom in. He's like, my AI created this. And he goes, this is what I feel like. I feel like every time I talk about AI. And I said, that's the way I feel this week. Like, I'm just like, I feel like I'm shouting to the world, like, it did this. Like, this is a major disruption if you're in marketing and design. Like, and it just, I don't know. Are we the only ones that are getting this in the bubble? Or do you think other people are seeing like this?
Yes, it is in the bubble, because what I did was I sent to like 7 different creative directors I knew, and I think 5 of them didn't know this even came out. And then 3 of them, like, I heard something, but I haven't tested it. So it's like, that's 7 from 7 different companies. And it's like, and it's hard to describe, right? Because it's like on the base of it, oh, it's just creating another image. Oh, there's lots of those. So you kind of have to be like, okay, how do I, in a very, very short amount of time, say how much better it is without saying anything what we just talked about the last like 20? Can't say that. It's like, okay, like, and I think you lead with the text inside because that's always the tough thing too. Is can never do anything right. But then you just show them like the one with the sign with all the words, and all the words are like super, super detailed and like accurate and coherent. I think that's like part of it. But until you actually try it, right? Like it has to match their use case. But I think it's still which is funny because like they released, and I don't think it was intentional or anything for either. But I was like, you know, Gemini launched like a super soda model, and you have everyone making Studio Ghibli images, and that's the news, right? Everybody's like, and I don't know if we were paying attention to Sam's X feed yesterday because he said our GPUs are melting, so he had to rate limit everybody's use of it because there was just apparently a lot of people who were using it. Because it was that good. So
And you're right.
I thought that was kind of funny.
By the way, okay, help me out here, because I literally had a coworker who said what you just said. Tell me the word you just said, the style of image. Ghibli, what did you just call it?
I call it Ghibli because
Is it anime? Is that a thing? Yes, Jimmy say
Studio
Totally-
Ghibli is an animation
out of the loop
studio,
on there. It's what?
it's so
Well, how
go out.
how much detail do you want?
Very little.
Yes.
Do it.
Okay.
High level.
It,
I love it.
it is
You
a
love
it is a specific animation studio from Japan.
Okay.
It has been around for a very long time. Its animation style is fairly unique. You will recognize it when you see it. All right.
Greg said Speed Racer. Speed Racer, that style.
kind
No.
of. that
Okay.
style.
You said you didn't want details, Brian.
Okay,
You're asking follow-up questions.
I'm sorry.
All right,
Yeah.
we can make this a 2-hour, 3-hour
No,
show if
no,
you
that's
want.
just
I can talk
like
about.
The show.
Okay, all right. But
No,
to
let me
answer your
get us
question
back on
quickly,
track.
no, it's not. It's not Speed Racer.
Let me get back on track then, because I don't want to go. I'm fearful of going down that line. But that is to Carl's point. That's what he came to me with, and he said, "Oh, did you know that GPT can now create those style of images?" That's exactly what Carl is saying. Is like that's what he thought they created. Nothing. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's like, "Oh, they created an image style thing," and I was like, "That is not what they created, but it can do that." So here's a good example. I gave it slides of core values that we were going over at Scaled, my company, or the company I work for. I don't know. In Austin, that's what I was doing. And you can see, you can't, but like I literally give it a screenshot of a slide deck of core values and our logo. And I was like, put this on, what did I say to do? I was like, add graphics and make each value kind of like, make it inspirational. And so there was a little bit of back and forth. I'll just show you the bottom one here. To your point, adherence to all the text from the get-go. The only thing it did is it kept messing up recommend here, and I had to work with it a little bit. It also had some things off. It didn't spell core values right at first. It was off. It was not centered. No problem bringing in the logo of Scaled. No problem with all of the text. I think there might be one misspelled word on here, which I could go in and fix. And it had no issue making this. And I literally created this and then showed it to everybody in the room because we're at a WeWork. And I was like, yeah, this is
I think.
Are you? Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm just trying to stop. I'm trying to stop the share, and now it's not letting me. Come on.
Just hide it on the left. There you
Yeah. I hit the X. I don't know what happened there, but I couldn't do what I normally do, where I just say stop showing that. So that was my example. I was like, to your point, Carl, hey, look at all this text that I screenshotted from a deck. So my point I was like, hey, salespeople, hey, do you know now that you have the power to make highly personalized pitch decks to any competitor, any company, any prospect, any demo call that you're on. To Carl's point, I can take the pain points that I'm solving through my company and put those pain points directly with their logo into an image to really, really make it hit home on a whiteboard, on the side of a billboard, maybe put it on a billboard in the city that they're based out of. That's a game changer. Nobody's doing that because it would take forever to figure that out. So if somebody is based in Colorado and I'm like, we're going through the slides together and they're like, da, da, da. And all of a sudden there's an image and it's exactly what I can solve for them. And it's on a billboard on the side of a road with a clear Colorado Springs backdrop or Denver backdrop. You don't think that's going to make it? You don't think they're going to remember that? I'm not saying you guys, I'm hypothetically saying you're like, yeah, you know what I'm saying. That's going to make an impact. And that's what I was trying to get across to people and going, you don't realize what you just got. And they're like, yeah, we can make these anime images. And I'm like, yes, but forget that. Forget that, you know?
Well, okay. I completely agree with you, but I think there's a reason why people are going crazy for the anime images and things like that. It's because that there's a clear delineation between how we're thinking in the business sense and how we're thinking from the consumer sense. The consumers just found a new reason to spend more time in ChatGPT. They spent a new way to spend their time, their creativeness, all those kinds of things. So that's huge for OpenAI because you just captured more consumers, which is your driving strategy right now. But I agree with you, Brian. The piece that people have left on the ground or passed by from the business side of things is this has just saved me 2 weeks of campaign development time. This has just saved me, upteen hours of being able to, release multiple campaigns. If we're looking for an example to wake people up or to, convince our own sale, is hand them an entire marketing campaign, like lookbook or a whole campaign portfolio, and just say, here, I made this in 60 minutes by myself with AI, and you can run this like right now. Like you said, you put this on the carousel by 4 p.m., that kind of thing. And that's the shock and awe. That's just going to be, excuse me? Yeah, here's an hour of my time. I included it as part of our consultation, and that will stop people in their tracks and make them realize, oh, this is going to be a huge efficiency, a huge savings from the business side.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to share a little adventure I had with Gemini 2.0 Flash experimental image generation. And then subsequently, I touch on Canva, which Beth has just pointed out is really good at finalizing that. And I'll explain why. So let me share my screen here. And here we go. This is what I started out. I'm working on a project and I wanted a mobile icon. So on the mobile thing to initiate a chat with the assistant, I wanted a little icon down in the bottom right. So it came up with something pretty good right away. Here's this. I asked it for a graduation cap with a tassel and a chat bubble. It had it down here. I said, okay, now move the tassel up above the cap and make some changes to the tassel. And it did this really weird, distorted look on the chat bubble, which I said, well, that's not going to work. And I then went forward and improved the tassel. This is all with text prompts, as you see. And then I didn't like the size of this one. It's tried to get it, to move closer to the center. And then eventually it seemed to be getting on track. This is getting closer, but it's too thin. And because it's going to be a mobile icon, I want the line drawing inside there to be nice and bold. And it finally came down with this. And then on the final step, without my instruction was without changing the design of the tassel, the dimensions of the cap line drawing, just move the point where the tassel connects to the center of the cap by moving it down a bit. And this is what it did. And I went, I quit. So then I went over to Canva, and this was the end result. I was able to take a sample image, have it do some modifications to it, and then I could actually draw in this segment here to make sure that the tassel started at the top of the cap. And it was easy to put in this text as a separate block. And the other major distinction is over in Gemini, I asked it for an SVG file that I could then upload to the lovable.dev coding agent that I have to put it in as the icon. And it said, I can't give you the file. I can give you the code of the SVG, and you can give the other one the code to the SVG. But when I took it over there, it was corrupt in some way and it wouldn't render that. It rendered some weird thing. But Canva is already built in such a way that the output of their downloads is immediately embraceable as an SVG file, immediately embraceable. And so this is the mobile icon for the chat tutor in Sensei.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's interesting how you went through that workflow and you saw some of the limitations. Even though you were having a natural back and forth with it, it kept maybe jumping too far and not necessarily doing what you were asking for and making those scalpel-like corrections to it, which is, I think here's the problem, right, Andy? Like, if that's somebody's very first interaction with it, the impression might be, unlike you, where you go, I'm not too worried about this. I know what else it can do. But that's the problem with AI, right? Like, if that's somebody's first interaction, it can be enough for them not to come back and say it's incapable because their use case didn't work for them. And I find that that's like the early days when everybody's like, hey, this GPT 4.5 or 3.5, they were just calling it ChatGPT, like in late 2022. This is hilarious. It'll write my mom a poem like it was written by Eminem. Right? And they're like, that's what it can do. And you're like, that's not really what all it can. Yes, it can. That, like, to your point, Beth, yes. And yes. And it also can do these other really, really cool things. And that's always been sort of the challenge with the business side of it, is to extrapolate from the fun, I can write a silly birthday card, I can write a song like Taylor Swift and sing along to it, to now these bigger multimodal use cases. And now, Andy, I feel like this is the appropriate time to share this with you because it's not even done. On. I fixed it. And now we're selling Fit Aid. So all I did was give 4.0 and I said, hey, this is the can we need. My bad. Don't do Celsius. Do Fit Aid. And so now it's redoing the thing, and it's not done with the can yet. But always ready for sun sweat. And I think it's supposed to say end fun and Fit Aid. Yeah, it messed that part up, but that's okay because I was trying to get the same thing it had here. But it's not done processing yet, but it does look like it got the right can. It does look like it did a good job there. So yeah, and the guys on the other side of the net too, it looked, no, maybe not. I was running into issues where it doesn't paint the net over the person. So it looks like his arm is actually on this side of the net, but he's on the other side of the net. Like, look, it doesn't look like it painted over the squares over him like it should have.
I would never notice that at this scale.
Well, listen, I take my image creation seriously.
You are a perfectionist, Brian. I'll say that.
And I wanted to share, since you were talking about, I don't have anything on Grok. I know you guys are going to share Grok, but I wanted to just show my 2 quick use cases for Gemini, if that's cool, because I think I got 2 cool kind of things here. So what was the first one here? This is something I think is really cool. This goes into the storyboarding idea, Jimmy, with, for people who are trying to create new books, new movies, or whatever. I think Gemini could be really cool for that. So you can see my prompt at the top is create a short story about a fluffy stuffed rabbit. We have one in our house. That comes to life at night and helps a little girl feel safe during bedtime. Make it cute and fun. Okay, that was my prompt. And very, very quickly, speaking of fast, I don't know how many 0.3 seconds this took or whatever. I didn't even read this, to be honest with you, because I was doing this quick before the show. I said, now let's storyboard this story with images. And it's like, okay, here's what needs to be on the panels. And then I said, okay, great, let's do it. And here you go. Lily's bedroom at night, Snowdrop's magical stirring. I guess he gets a little something on his nose, or she does. As the moon shines, a touch of magic stirs within Snowdrop. Lily's having troubles with dreams. Snowdrop starts to notice Lily's distress and hops on the pillow to help. He gently nudges her cheek, whispering comfort. To chase away the bad dreams, Snowdrop makes a silly face, the silliest faces he can. Lily feels a little tickle, starts to smile. The scared dreams begin to fade. He sings a quiet bunny lullaby, his soft voice comforting and sound. Lily snuggles deeper, feeling safe and secure with her fluffy friend. Each night, Snowdrop bravely investigates any nighttime sounds, reassuring Lily. He also tells her funny stories about silly squirrels, filling the night with laughter. As morning arrives, Snowdrop is back on the pillow, a silent guardian until the next magical night.
Well, that's a lovely story, but Snowdrop lost its ears in most of those images. What happened there?
Yes, that's true. There's some inconsistency. I mean, I didn't even notice that. This is a one-shot deal. Well, obviously, we could go in. I think, though, like, Jimmy, wouldn't you even agree? I don't want to lead you on this, but like, if you were going to pitch something, let's just say the ears were a little off, or off literally, or a little off, or whatever. But even when you consider this good enough, if you were going to fast sketch something or storyboard an idea, or if you were in the movie making business and you're just sitting at a cafe, let's say you're in Hollywood, and you're sitting at a cafe and you're like, all right, I'm going to get with my writing partners to come up with ideas. And you're like, oh, we have this great idea about this bunny. It's coming up on Easter. And somebody's like, that's a great idea. And then somebody literally pulls out their laptop at lunch. And it's like, let's just storyboard that idea really quickly while we're talking about it. And they put out something like this. I mean, no, yes, game changer. It feels like a game changer,
It certainly is a quick way to get started on ideation. And so for that, I say absolutely. That example of, it's like, oh yeah, I have this idea. Oh, okay. Well, let's storyboard it out. Let's sketch it out. Let's at least put the initial pins in it and then go on from there. I think that is a great way to shorten the amount of time it takes to your first iteration or your first implementation. So I'm totally on board there. I mean, technically, you'd want to go through a few more iterations before you showed it to anybody,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Of course. But yeah, that's a great jumping off point for sure. And when you were showing that, the first things that came to my mind was, and now I can use these as reference images for animatics, right?
Yeah.
Simple animatics. I just dump this into Runway or whatever, and I can create some general motion to show how the scene's going to move or how the camera's going to move in it, those kinds of things. And that's the next level. And then you can just build upon that and build upon that. And that still is an afternoon, which would normally you go back and forth between and wait for the process to be done. So as with everything that I'm really excited about in AI, this is that point where every day people can see, hey, look, I can do all of this. I can do a great deal of this on my own. I can shorten the amount of time and effort it requires to get to the next milestone or the milestone after that. And this all goes to that. How far can I go with my idea, right? And then where is the most important to be more collaborative or bring on expertise in different fields and things like that. So it's lowering the barrier, just like, and I've said this before, just like digital cameras, when it came out, that lowered the barrier for more people to be more creative. This is the same kind of thing. We can go further with less and go further on our own to develop our own ideas.
Yeah. And here's another use case, right? Maybe you're going to hire a professional photographer, but you just need to quickly get your ideas out of your brain. So you could see create images showing how to make homemade guacamole using locally sourced ingredients. Okay, let's say I work for a restaurant and I have an idea as the owner, but I'm not graphically inclined. I don't know how to make images. Look at this. It will put it together and then put all the images for the how-to to that. So to your point again, Jimmy, same idea. I don't have to be the expert, but this is a leveling technology where it enables me, somebody who doesn't have the ability to do this, to say, this is what's in my brain. So much of what I do as a consultant is trying to extract 20, 25, 30 years of knowledge from somebody like Andy, or where I'm like, but Andy, you could write a book on this, on how to strategically work with big teams and everything that Andy did at Fit8, right? But my job as a consultant a lot of times is to say, I need to get that out of your brain. It's no good if it's locked up here. And now I could go, Andy, you could say like, well, with a little bit of time in Gemini, a little bit of time in 4.0 or maybe Grok 2, I can conceptually get this out to help the person who now needs to take that, that charge and go with it. But I can workshop this. I can brainstorm this. I can make a digital whiteboard of it. I can show arrows going from one thing to next if I want to show a system or process thinking. Now with a bit of prompting, or probably just talking to it if Andy really wanted to, I'm just using you, Andy, as an example, he could quickly storyboard or block that all out and then say, here you go. This is where I am. You go do what makes you awesome and what makes you an expert in your field and take this to the next level. But man, does that shorten the time from getting something extracted out of Andy's brain to reality, to a one pager, to a new whatever for the business. And that is traditionally a lengthy process that could easily take a month. And now I think you could do it in 2 days if people were tasked to do it, or less, honestly. Pretty amazing stuff.
So I want to pop in here and say that when you're sourcing, like Brian's talking about, from someone else's content, it can totally follow that and do things. When you have something that you're trying to create that is akin to something else that is created, so it could be considered probable, you're likely to get that. So the images, there's lots of images in its training material on how to make guacamole, I'm sure. But when you start to go out of that, you're going to get some funky things. And one of the things that that for me has happened, Grok is more creative, and I will just give quick comparisons of these. Grok, like, gotta love you, bud. Here we go. Replace the background with something professional. That did work, but this is no longer me at all. And I'm a dude.
We're not showing it. There we go.
We're not showing. Sorry.
Now we are.
This is what I would look like if I were a dude, apparently.
Ooh.
All right. So that is that one. Then we go to the headshot. Share this tab instead. Then we go to thank you for the foreground midground because it did successfully remove the sculpture behind my head and replace the back of this image with something professional. It just goes to a white background. And then we're going to share this tab instead. Replace the background with something professional. And it gives me professional, but again, I'm not me anymore. This is not my face.
Right.
And now I'm maybe I work in healthcare. Like, so sure, go. Yeah. So I think that it's important to understand when what you're asking it for is going to be typical and in the training stuff, and when it's not, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What about Grok? I mean, we haven't really talked about it. I just haven't played with it. That was Gemini, or was that Grok? I'm sorry, Beth. What were you?
Grok was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Grok is the first one where I'm a dude and got the Grok is the first one. Grok is very fast. Grok
Faster
gives
than
2
Gemini? I
images.
feel like Gemini is really fast.
Um, Gro- eh, Grok gives 2 images.
Okay.
So gives you some of that. And it's true, Gemini can be really fast. So I guess very fast compared to 4.0.
4.0 is slow. Yeah. I mean,
and-
comparatively slow. But obviously it's a different process, which is why it's funny. It's like it's much faster than Diffusion. I'm like, well, no, but also that could be a server issue right now. When I was in the WeWork
Absolutely.
yesterday and I had a VPN on, I mean, it was like a 4 or 5, 6 minute process to get like one image. And you could see when I was just sharing my screen, it was having trouble getting to the bottom of that FitAid one that I did. I'll have to go back and look and see if if it fixed the rest of that. So you say Grok is creative, like really creative. Like, are there other things that Grok has? Do you feel like whoever's used it has a competitive advantage over like why you would use a Grok over Gemini or 4.0 at this moment? And also, my follow-up question is: the last I remember with Grok, they had just brought in Flux, but are they now on their own model?
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I know that Grok. I know that my personal use cases for Grok are when they're slightly on the somebody else might refuse. So there was a thumbnail that we did where Google's logo was on presents on a table. So I made Google logo wrapping paper. I did that in Grok because Grok was willing to create Google logo wrapping paper, right? The other models were like, nah, I don't think we want to do this for you. This seems bad. But like those kinds of cases, I think are when Grok is doing stuff. But the other thing is if you are paying for if you're paying with X, then Grok is fine. Grok is like a good serviceable image generator.
Now,
Carl,
do you think
you're paying for X. Have you used it? No.
Well, it's like Google. I'm like all the use cases. I'm down to like it's too much. It's not too much. It's just like it's sitting. It would sit there for like weeks on end, not being used or used once or twice.
Oh, you're not paying for it anymore. Got it.
Oh, X, I never
Yeah.
paid for it at all.
Oh, okay.
I just never needed it. And with everything free, that's kind of enough, right? So
Hmm.
Same.
Yeah, I think the 4.0 is going to have a major impact, and I know it's not the direct topic of today, but I think it's worth noting. I have multiple teams instances that I'm part of for consultants or whatever, as well as scaled. You know what's interesting? I went through the other team components, and there was just that announcement that ChatGPT is now direct connected to Google Drive. They said Slack and Google Drive will be the two to do. Well, Carl, you shared it yesterday. It was a post on LinkedIn, basically from one of their, I think, heads of dev or something like that at OpenAI, and they said, "Oh, we're now connected." Scaled's team they rolled out to Scaled's team. Really interesting. That's a topic for a different show. But what is the connector, I believe, is being able to even faster. You saw the scaled infographic that I created, like the poster thing. If I now have if I can connect internal scaled knowledge through live Google Docs, right? Which we have. We're a Google house. So we have Google Docs, the same as the Daily AI show. And I put that as part of what they're calling internal knowledge. I now have the ability and the background data I need to quickly create the images. Now, it said it can't go look at images. It was pretty clear about where its limitations are. It can basically read text and stuff, but that's okay. I can give it a logo. I can give it those kind of things, even if the image creator can't do that. But if I just want to tell it, like I kind of did before, hey, I have this, I'm going to be doing this demo call and I already have the deck together. I need a few images. Go look at our latest version because it's live information. Bring that into the conversation. Now create me some images that go along with it. I can't wait to do that. I haven't had a chance to connect it because there's a lot of OAuth and things that have to be done through the Google console, just like you do with N8N. So OpenAI has a very lengthy page of here's your 47 steps to connect your Google Drive as the admin. I'll be going through that today at some point. But I think it's worth noting that as more connectors come online, of which OpenAI is very clear about where they're building their moat, connected to your CRM, connected to Notion, connected to Slack, Google Drive, you name it, emails, all that stuff, it will be connected, all that. Once that is all internal documents, and you have the power of these multimodal images, and we know the future of multimodal images is multimodal video. So what are we looking at 1 year from today? I put out a post about this, my 365 prediction. Now knowing what we know this week and knowing what OpenAI is doing with their connectors, tell me I won't be not only training people on how to set up their Teams instance, meaning Google OpenAI's ChatGPT team instance, but I'll be training and showing clients of mine how they can quickly create highly personalized one-off pitch decks to send in outreach email sequences with images that have perfect text in them, like we just showed before, and videos to go along with it. 1 year.
How are you finding that? Because all my clients, 99% of them are Microsoft shops. There is not one that is a Google shop.
Oh,
So
we have tons. We have tons.
that,
We're a Google
and
shop.
that all Google shops?
What? No,
I don't know.
Scale is a Google shop. Daily AI Show is a Google shop. We're not Microsoft.
I would say of the hundreds that we deal with, it's Microsoft shops. It is.
We don't deal with them, so that's the quick answer to that.
Okay.
They're just not our client. I'm honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. For Scaled right now, unless we hire other people,
It's all Google.
Copilot would not be where I'm focusing my time because I am in this camp of I can see the moat they're building. We've talked about this on the show enough. ChatGPT doesn't want you to, or OpenAI does not want you to leave or have a reason to leave
No, I
ChatGPT.
get,
So that's where I'm hedging my bets as a
I
consultant.
get that. It's just that I don't know like what the percentage breakdown is, but I wish that was true, but I can't like client after
You
client.
just need to open your pitch deck with the sunk cost fallacy, and then you don't have to worry about a Microsoft house.
No. It's yeah, exactly. It's like you shall use this, we shall, or it's we shall use this. And I'm kind of in that like, okay, fine, we have no choice but to build. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is why is it Office 365? Like, is there to me, is there like, would that freak people out or freak people at Microsoft out if they build that? Because that kind of defeats the point of Office 365 Copilot if you have that type of connection, because then it's another, why would I, my argument to any company that we always work with is like, Copilot, if I have the environment to be very candid, some environments I don't, so I don't say anything. But if environment could be candid, be like, yeah, it's as if Microsoft waters down OpenAI technology. Not sure how. Typical Microsoft. Don't know why they do it, but and then the new research assistant and an analyst assistant they're coming out with, part of Copilot. I was like, I bet you test it, it's the same. It's the same crap that they'll pull, even though they say it does the same thing. Like, no, it doesn't.
Well, Gwen is agreeing with you, by the way, Carl, and saying that like the majority of who she feels like she interacts with are Microsoft houses. I don't do the sales for Scaled. We have Jake, our CEO, is lifetime sales in terms of what he knows, and so I don't really get involved in that. But I can tell you pretty confidently we don't have a lack of people who are Google shops. So I don't know if that's an enterprise versus a small medium business. I am sure there's good reasons for that. I agree with you. I don't know that there's necessarily enterprise. It'd be like saying enterprise in HubSpot versus Salesforce. I think typically you're going to find Salesforce being the answer there, not HubSpot. There's a delineation of where that kind of makes sense for them. Although HubSpot will tell you they're an enterprise platform, right? Google would say the same probably about G Drive and stuff. But look, there's no lack of I could just specialize this as a consultant over the next 2 years. I don't think I would have any lack of potential clients for it, because there's enough businesses that are certainly running on it. Again, Scale's been around 13 years and we've been Google since day one. I cannot imagine Scale pivoting to Microsoft. So there you go. There's a one of one case, but still.
So it's interesting because Gwen is saying not Google is not in healthcare, and in what you just showed, Brian, it would seem to me, looking at that would also be a natural like place where there's tons of photos of people in healthcare situations that could be generated, right? Similar photos that could be generated for information documents or any of that. And that's really interesting, Gwen, because then you're right. That would need to be, that would need to connect to a Microsoft thing. So,
And by the way, healthcare, you're going to get into the HIPAA and things like that too. I should just point this out because I don't want to leave it hanging. Again, not the topic of today, and then we'll wrap things up. But the Google connector, those permissions are no different than if you were sharing a document with some people and not other people. So it's like a document by document use case or folder by folder use case that user in the team would be able to get. So it's not as if just because it gets connected that the 5 of us are in the same ChatGPT team account. And if Andy is the CEO and the rest of us are just, lower level players, Andy would be able to ask questions in ChatGPT that the rest of us couldn't, because he has user level permissions at certain documents. So I just want to make sure that's out there. That's not to say, oh my God, the HIPAA, or that they're a healthcare solution. I just want to at least, end on that so that people aren't thinking this is some open portal to everything that's on a G drive and like, oh my God, why would you want that? OpenAI is thinking about this hard, man. And they don't want anybody saying that my data got out that it shouldn't be. So when they start doing these live connectors, I have to believe they're thinking real hard about protecting and doing embedding.
One thing there though, if you're concerned about your data and privacy and you're on Google, like you kind of have to kind of double check. I was like, you don't think Google knows everything about you already? Like, I'm just like, because that's sometimes I'm like, whenever we go into these meetings and we've got, we want to protect our privacy and data. And I know that's important, but sometimes the things inside me, I was like, hold on a second. Like, how much do we share? How much companies, what is the actual security risk from an AI versus everything else in comparison? Because we still get those stupid videos that you have to complete every year about how you shouldn't pick up random USBs that potentially somebody could drop in your parking lot and stick it into your computer. And that's
Look,
the end.
Carl, there is a legal requirement that compliance has to do through the IT department to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that the organization is protected. So yes, you have to watch your stupid video every few months because
I watch it. I just play it and cover something on top of it.
A data breach can be up to $250,000 per instance. All right.
More
And
actually.
that's even more if it's HIPAA.
that's cheap.
Hey, look, well, most of these breaches are in the hundreds of thousands. So normally breaches become millions of dollars. And if you aren't a giant company that can throw money at that, it's gonna hurt.
All right, let's say I want to wrap this up because we're there. Real quick, Beth or Jimmy, you want to plug what you guys have coming up later today?
We have Andy coming up later today. Join us on the Sci-Fi AI show because we're going to be interviewing our very own Andy Halliday, who we have learned all week has led several lives and is still creating them. So
That's true.
yeah, it's on the Sci-Fi AI channel, and I'll pop it in the chat. Thanks.
Perfect. And Jimmy, will you correct what I got wrong last week? Because you corrected, I said it wrong. The Sci-Fi AI channel is a sub-channel of the Daily AI Show channel on YouTube. That's correct, right? Okay. I said that wrong last week, guys. I just want to make sure I made that correction because I was saying, oh, it's a separate channel. And Jimmy afterwards said, It's a sub channel of the YouTube channel. So anyway, just want to make sure that was everybody knew, but the link is directly in the chat. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us all week. I was only here 2 days, but thanks for being here, everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. And we'll be back next week with a whole lot more. Don't forget, we'll have the Conundrum episode coming out tomorrow, and we'll have the newsletter going out on Sunday. If you'd like to be part of that newsletter, all you have to do is go to thedailyishow.com and sign up for it. It's free. It'll go out on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. And then we'll be back all next week with all sorts of new topics. So until then, guys, have a great weekend. And thanks for hanging out with us today. Bye.
Aloha.